reaction to that extraordinary interview I just finished with your brother?
I think that was one of the best interviews ever conducted with Andrew. I don't know how hard you're going to go on me, so perhaps I'm making a mistake saying this. I like how you challenge your guests. I like how you seem to have a very impartial opinion on people. You don't judge things one way or another before you go into the interviews, and I think that made the interview with Andrew very interesting. I'm very excited to see the public response.
I mean, like I said to him, I'm not here to convict you or otherwise. I don't know if you're guilty or not of the charges laid against you. We'll establish that in a trial or otherwise. I mean, it may not even go to trial.
No, it might not.
Rolling Stone, in a profile, said this about
Rolling Stone.
Their relationship dynamic is very odd. It's like Tristan is held captive by Andrew and believes or follows everything Andrew says or does.
I don't believe or follow a lot of things that Andrew says or does. You know, I get asked every single day to counter. E.J. Dickinson is this woman's name. I could tell you some horrible stories about the people who she's harassed and bothered, this Rolling Stone woman. The things Andrew says and does, I mean, I get asked...
What don't you like about his views?
Well, the major one, when people say, oh, Tristan, now that you've converted to Islam, I'm like, I haven't converted to Islam. Who says I converted to Islam? No, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I have not converted to Islam.
What do you think of his conversion?
I think that it's not my place to even comment on it. Now, some of the greatest religious discussions I have had have been with Andrew since his reversion, since him reading the Quran, most of it, of which he covered in prison. And we sit there and discuss these various ideas, but I believe that individual religious conviction is exactly that, it's individual. And I don't believe, whether I'm his brother, whether I'm his son, mother, uncle, I have no place to tell him what his religious conviction should be, just as he has no business to tell me mine. So I'm happy for him because he's become a happier and better person.
Are you rivals?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. But in the best and most healthy way. I can't watch him train in the gym for an hour in the morning and then not train for an hour myself. I can't sit there drinking and relaxing and partying while he's on his laptop working.
Do you ever fight?
No, never. We never argue.
You never physically fight?
Well, we used to physically fight all the time. We're both professional athletes, so we used to beat each other up in the ring for sparring.
Who would win?
Oh, Andrew would win. I was good. I was the European champion at my peak, but Andrew was built for Andrew's. I mean, see my broken nose? It leans this way. First time it was broken was by him, and it got weaker after that, and I had it broken twice subsequently in kickboxing matches. But yeah, we are rivals in the way that we inspire each other to work better and to be better, but not rivals in any way that his success would upset me or my success would upset him.
When you were in jail together,
yes.
So for a period of that 3 months, you were actually in the same cell. I
Indeed,
think.
For about half of it.
What did you talk about when it's just you and him, and you're thinking we may never get out of it?
Lots of things. Books, religion, the case, obviously, explaining, trying to understand.
When you're in a cockroach-infested tiny cell together,
yes,
you've gone from being the top G and his brother with your Bugattis, your cigars, the lifestyle, the women, and so on, to literally nothing in a very degrading environment that you find yourself in, and you've got no idea how this plays out or how it ends, or even if you get out. I mean, that's a big moment.
Yeah, I guess it is a big moment, but I always knew that we were going to be okay. You know, even when I was separate from him, I wasn't worried that he was banging his head against the wall or self-harming or doing anything stupid. Again, he wasn't worried about me. We obviously weren't worried that the other brother, and I know you can't share in this conviction, I know he's not a criminal. I know he has no skeletons in his closet and no criminal past. He knows exactly the same about me. So we were very relaxed. I guess in jail, I was more relaxed than I am now, because in prison, I assumed that the prosecutor, whose job by the Romanian constitution, by the way, he's not a district attorney like in the United States, where he is told he has to argue that you're guilty and that's it. The prosecutor's job actually here is to discern the truth of the situation. So I was sitting in jail relatively relaxing. Well, this is going to end any day now. I mean, human trafficking, this is stupid. It's not going to happen. Like, they're not going to sentence me to jail for this. It was only when I got out that I learned the true motivations behind this that made me actually more worried than I was in jail. So in jail, I was relatively relaxed. Trained every day. Ate their horrible food, did my push-ups. It was all right. Mental break, no electronics.
People often say, and it's certainly true from people I've interviewed over the years, that you're a product of your environment, particularly of your parents.
Yes.
In a November 2011 Facebook post, your father, Emery, wrote that the eternal problem of the alpha male was protecting his flock of women. He said, "The times I struck a woman, brackets, in passion, I never left a mark, no trace, hyper control, super control of a human animal. They love me still."
I've never heard that before in my life. I'm smiling, man, because I can imagine his voice saying it.
You can.
I can imagine his voice saying it. The only times I've struck a woman, in brackets, in passion. Have you ever struck a woman in passion, Piers?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Not a little spank?
Well,
Not once?
let's keep this above board. But
I want to, Piers, but I'm saying, like, I understand how you're trying to phrase this.
no, I don't
And
understand.
Again, my father is dead and can't
No,
defend himself.
I'm not trying to phrase it in any way. I'm just curious what you think he meant by that.
I honestly don't know. I mean, keep in mind, my father died when I was 27, and that post was written a long time ago. I've never heard it before. I've never seen it before.
But what kind of father was he in terms of the values he instilled in you and Andrew?
Oh, he was a wonderful man, and he was a very protective man over his family and the people he cared about. I mean, they got divorced many, many years ago, but even with his dying breath, he would have jumped in to fight 10 men to defend my mother and her honor. That's the kind of guy he was, super protective and super, involved in everyone he loves life, even if he was far away. The phone calls were constant, the emails were constant, and he held us very accountable as young men.
Andrew tweeted last year, my dad was a chess genius CIA operative. My mother was a dinner lady. They had nothing in common. Dad said she fed you boys healthy meals every day, cleaned the house and was largely quiet. I loved her very much. That's literally all men want.
Are you asking if that's an accurate description
Yeah.
of my parents' relationship?
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah. But my mother was a wonderful mother. See, I don't think.
But they split up.
Of course they did. But that does. Well,
So when he says that's literally all men want.
They split up way before I was old enough to understand marriage or sexual or male or female dynamics, by the way. So I can't even comment on their marriage. What I can comment on is how they were as parents. And what I will say is, I don't look back on my childhood raised in a council estate, on state benefits, I was free school lunches. I don't look back on that and think, oh, my mother was a terrible mother because we didn't have any money. Because I don't think it was my mother's job to, I guess, provide as much as my father was doing his best from the United States. But I will look back and say my mother was an absolutely wonderful mother. I had 3 square meals a day. She knew how to manage her finances, didn't smoke, didn't go out with her friends, made sure my clothes were always washed, knew how to mend things. She is.
How does she feel about the fact that both her boys are in this serious legal jeopardy?
Well, you have to understand, she's known us our entire lives, and you haven't. When I was 15, 16, 18, all my friends were selling drugs and breaking into cars. I was down at the kickboxing gym every single day. I would get into the kickboxing ring for 50 pounds after 8 weeks training, just because I found harmony in the discipline that sport gave me. I think kickboxing is massively, largely responsible for keeping me from ever doing anything illegal. Never tried a drug in my life. Never broken a law in my life.
Never broken any law?
Speeding.
Right.
We're talking, I'm talking about serious crimes. And my mother's known that even at my most desperate and my most poor, I would come home to her and sleep on her couch for 6 months, as opposed to do anything illegal and try to find an honest, good way of, legal way at least, of making money. So
Is she worried about you, the situation you're in?
Well, she's worried about the situation, but she has no doubt in her mind that I haven't done any heinous things against women, especially for money, because it doesn't make sense that after going through what I've gone through and avoiding any legal problems, suddenly I'm worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I decide that's the time to start trafficking.
You guys have preached a message of masculinity, and I'm all in favour of masculinity.
Great.
Many other people have categorised it as toxic masculinity because of the misogyny and so on. Do you feel that maybe you have collectively gone too far in the misogyny, and that has been, again, one of the reasons you find yourself in the problems you're in?
Well, again, when I say... First,
the kind of alpha male
what have I
rhetoric.
Said, what have I said that's misogynistic?
No, I'm just asking you generally whether you feel that's part of the problem.
I don't think that's part of the problem. I don't think it is a problem at all. I think that when somebody has been speaking on the internet for a decade, you have to understand that, first of all, lots and lots of content is produced, and it's very easy to cherry pick and to take things out of context.
Sure.
And number 2, the man speaking on the internet 10 years ago is not the man sitting and being interviewed by you today. Who I was when I was 25, I fancied myself a bit of a dating coach, used to give people advice on how to meet women and how to pick. That's not how I live now. I'm 35, I'm not 25. You at 25, I'm sure, were very vastly different than you are today. So, I don't think there's a problem with anything I've said, because I've never advocated for anything illegal. I've never advocated for any crime. I do not advocate for drugs. I do not advocate for violence. I do not advocate for any of these things. So if Andrew said that women can't drive as well as men once, it's very easy to jump on that and say this man is the world's biggest misogynist because he said X.
Look, I just think it's, for me, when I look at all the rhetoric, the stuff that I find most problematic, to use the phrase of the buzz phrase of our era,
Absolutely.
is simply where I feel like if it strays into that misogyny, I think you let yourselves down. That you have a good message in many ways. A lot of the stuff, notwithstanding the serious charges you're facing, and we'll have to see how that all plays out. And maybe you both are very different people to the ones you're claiming to be. We'll find out, right? But in terms of your general rhetoric, I find that constant running underpinning theme of misogyny and about where a woman's place should be, that is the problem in terms of the influence on young men. They shouldn't all be walking around thinking that a woman's place is only in the home serving their men. And that somehow their only thought process each day, women, should be, how do I please my man, not can I get a fulfilling job or any of those things. But no, you stay at home, self-improvement, make yourself look good, obey his instructions, all that kind of stuff. But
Andrew talking about the way that he wants his relationships to work.
He's entitled. He's entitled to what it. No,
advocating and forcing for the whole world to see things his way.
Yeah, but that's the delusion, because.
Well, no, because
you can say he only wants that for himself, right? And by the way, he's allowed any relationship he wants. But when you pretend that when he says those things, they're not amplified to literally tens of millions of impressionable young men.
But here's why you're wrong.
Then you know that's not true.
Well, here's why you're wrong, because you assume that Andrew Tate, for some reason, in this conversation, is the only influencer in the world and the only person people listen to. Because he's not at all.
No,
the internet.
But I'm going to tell you, he's one of the most influential.
Yeah, no, he absolutely is, and that's great.
And that's the part of his influence that I think is a potentially malevolent.
Great, and it's wonderful and good, and you don't have to like it. But let me tell you, every force has an equal and opposite force somewhere else. So on X, Elon has now legalized free speech on that platform. So there are differing opinions on every single aspect of life, including how you want to date women, what kind of music you should listen to, what kind of cars are good, what kind of whatever it is. So for every Andrew Tate out there, there's some feminist OnlyFans model who lives in Florida who makes rap music who's saying that men are nothing and men are shit. So the people who are listening to Andrew Tate aren't listening to Andrew Tate. They're listening to the internet as a whole. And I believe Andrew's message is, one, overwhelmingly positive, absolutely overwhelmingly positive, and I believe he's a very important mark on that spectrum of opinions that exist out there, because when you delete Andrew Tate, the mean average of people will drift down this toilet of degeneracy and become less like Andrew Tate. He's a professional athlete with a completely clean criminal record, by the way, who's massively financially successful, who's kind, who's generous. He runs his own charity.